Hi guys, yes, I'm wearing the same outfit. I'm recording this at the same time that I recorded Sweat by Zora Neale Hurston. This video, we're going to talk about Babylon Revisited by F. Scott Fitzgerald. To begin, let's talk about the title. You'll see in your textbook that the footnote says that Babylon was an ancient, prosperous city in Mesopotamia, associated by the Hebrews and Greeks with materialism and sensual pleasure. Here, the reference is to Paris, where this story is set in the aftermath of the stock market crash of 1929. So our main character, Charlie, is on his own at the start of this story. And we learn later in the story that Charlie and his wife, Helen, enjoyed a very robust, very fun life as socialites in the time leading up to or before this story. In the early years of their marriage, they really enjoyed going out and enjoying life. This is part of Fitzgerald's Jazz Age series, which was about flappers and the luxurious life that they lived. However, this story is kind of taking place in the aftermath of all that, after all that has come and all the glitz and the glamour has faded to the side. And our character, our protagonist, Charlie, is returning to his sister-in-law, so his wife's sister, his sister-in-law's house to meet up with his daughter, who is living with his sister and brother-in-law. So Lincoln Peters is his brother-in-law, and Marion is his wife's sister, his sister-in-law. So Lincoln and Marion are married. Charlie and Helen were married. Charlie and Helen's daughter is Henria. So we learn that Charlie does have a fairly decent relationship with his daughter. He takes her out and they enjoy the day together. And we learn that Charlie is trying to get his life on track, and he's trying to gain back custody of his daughter, who is currently living with Lincoln and Marion and their two children, a boy and a girl. However, we also learn that the reason why Henria is living with her aunt and uncle is because her mother, Helen, is no longer with them, and they did not at the time deem Charlie a suitable and stable place for the daughter to live. And that is due to all of the enjoyment and the partying that they did, Helen and Charlie did when they were younger. We see a conversation between Marion and Charlie where she says that she'll never be able to forgive him about a night when Helen showed up at her door just soaking wet. And we learn from Charlie, he kind of has a flashback after spending time with his daughter, and we learn from Charlie that he and Helen had gotten into an argument and that he had come home and he had locked the door and did not realize that he had locked her out into the night, and she was left to kind of wander around. She was probably intoxicated in that moment and wasn't really sure of what's going on and having full control of her faculties. That's no excuse to lock your wife out of the house or to not look for her. But that's probably a part of what happened, is they were both just intoxicated. So she shows up at her sister's doorstep, takes her in. Helen did get sick from that, but we learn from Charlie that Helen healed from that sickness, that pneumonia or whatever she caught that night. And that isn't necessarily, according to Charlie, what killed her. However, that's not the way Marion sees things. That's not the way her sister sees things. And that makes it difficult for Marion to release. And we see at the moment that Marion is about ready to release Henria to Charlie, but his past comes back, his ghosts come back to haunt him in the form of Lorraine Quarles and Duncan Schaeffler. They show up drunk, wanting to take Charlie out on the town. They show up at his sister-in-law's house ready to go, and she sees this as unsavory and he hasn't really changed, and she becomes upset, and Charlie is forced to leave, and Lincoln explains that it's probably going to be a while before Marion comes around again. But toward the end of the story, we're left with kind of not really a resolution. It's a little bit hopeful, but it's not a particularly satisfying ending. It says, this is page 1005. He would come back someday. They couldn't make him pay forever, but he wanted his child, and nothing was much good now beside that fact. He wasn't young anymore, with a lot of nice thoughts and dreams to have by himself. He was absolutely sure Helen wouldn't have wanted him to be so alone. So he ends on a bit of a hopeful note. He's taking a turn. He isn't going to go back to his past. He's going to keep trying and keep fighting. But it's also a little bittersweet. It's bitter because he's still not with his child, and he does feel alone, and he is having to pay constantly for past mistakes. So one thing that I also wanted to point out is that there are echoes of Fitzgerald's own life and own story in this short reading. And it goes back and forth. You'll have some people that say that Fitzgerald wrote about his life. You'll have others that say that Fitzgerald lived his life to match what he was writing about. Not necessarily losing his daughter or battles over custody, because that wasn't necessarily the instance there, but definitely the life of the flapper, the life of the partying in the jazz age, and then things, all that glitters isn't gold, as we learned from one of our previous poems, and that things that seem really awesome at the beginning, everything that glitters, eventually kind of vanishes and dies out. It's hard to sustain a life like the one that Charlie and Helen led. So there are some echoes, and there is a connection to what Fitzgerald was doing in his life. So before I lose all my light from the sun shifting, I just want to say I hope you're having a great day. I hope you enjoyed this story, and I'll see you next time. Bye.